Hey folks, welcome to today's episode of The Daily Dart. I'm your host, Eugene Runkus. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Lady Elche. And, well, the Lady Elche is actually a stone carving of a woman that was found in Spain, but she has these machines on the side of her head. And what I've done is I've kind of gone and retro engineered what kind of machine that could be, and that's what this episode is about. So the first thing we're going to look at is, as you can see, the Lady Elche has these big discs on either side of her head that seem to be attached to her ears by a helmet that goes on her head. So it's a helmet with two large earpieces on it. And there's a lot of speculation as to what these machines could be. A lot of people think they were some sort of wireless communication device, like something similar to the modern phone. But what my inquiry indicates is that the machine that she has on her head detects brainwaves and converts those brainwaves into audible sound, so that a person could literally hear her thoughts coming out of the speaker of a speaker. So that's astonishing to say that, and as I describe this machine to you, I'll explain to you why I think that is. So first of all, what we need to look at is how could this be a machine? How could this be an electrical circuit? And on this page right here, I've drawn this diagram of the side view of the machine, and as you can see in the photograph, there are flat plates that look like an X shape, and then there's plates that have 3 dome-shaped knobs on each one. And electrical knowledge into trying to rebuild what kind of machine this would be, and it led me on a very interesting journey, and the things that I learned from it are astonishing. So I figured out how to, with just natural materials and a little bit of metal, I learned how to isolate the electrical rods away from each other. I figured out a way to wrap the coil wrappings opposite of each other on the rods in the configuration that it's in. I figured out how to incorporate magnetite, natural rare earth magnets into the system where the coils would pass across the magnets and generate an electrical current. I figured out a way to wire it up so that it does the same thing that the electrical pickups do on a guitar. So the machine works just like the electrical pickups on a guitar, and which is the amazing thing about it. And if those were contact rods, negative and positive, the raised dimple portions would be lobes of the dimples themselves would be isolators that isolate that rod away from the X-shaped rods. So if you can make that jump, make that first extrapolation to say that those are metal rods going down inside the machine and that they're isolated away from each other, then you can begin to understand how this could be an electrical machine, or a construct that actually does some kind of work. So literally, look, what you're looking at right here is a depiction of Demeter the Sibyl, or the prophetess, the prophetess herself. I'm talking about the Oracle of Delphi. This is the caliber of person that the statue is trying to depict, and that machine on her head is a very important part of all of that. And so, a little bit deeper into the machine, you'll see this row of little squares that are just below the X-shaped plates and the dimples. I believe those were magnets, like rare earth magnets, real magnetite stones that were cut and set into there. And that would be a good a commutator for static electricity traveling across those rods. If there was magnetites, magnetite magnets there, in alternating polarities, it would do the same thing as an alternating motor does, in our modern terms. It would convert static electricity into electrical charge. It would commutate the electricity, in other words. So just making those couple simple analogies right there, I was able to go further on and draw a fairly precise diagram of what this machine would operate like. And in a lot of ways, it's like the electrical pickup of a guitar. It's the same thing as an electrical pickup for a guitar. It picks up electrical signals and transfers them into sound waves, and that's what this machine does. So that's why I say that the Lady Elche is wearing a machine that would convert her brain waves into audible sounds. So if she was serving as a prophetess, or they called him a Sibyl back then, if she was a Sibyl, or an oracle, someone they would refer to as oracles, like if she was the Oracle of Delphi, maybe, she would have worn this device, and questions that were answered would have been answered through this device. So you would hear brain waves coming back at you, and so that's a pretty astonishing thing to even contemplate. But if you look on this page next to it, you can see there's 3 different arrangements that you could have for an isolated metal rod, done real simple. Like the raised lobes. The rod could have been just a solid metal rod that went all the way through. It could have been a slender metal rod with a casing around it, to isolate or insulate it from other surfaces. Or that could be just like a thin disc on top, like a washer that would hold the top of the metal rod in place and isolate it. So there's a few different ways that could have been approached. And just looking at a stone carving isn't enough to say with any determining policy what that arrangement was. But it looks to me like they were those rods with the raised dimple areas. They were inside of an isolating sleeve or an insulating sleeve, and those dimples account for the isolation of those metal rods. And you can see just the metal dimple sticking up out of the center of it, and then immediately next to it the X-shape metal caps that are in there that have a single rod that comes down through the center of it and enters the machine. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense because where the X arms actually go over to where the raised dimpled areas are, those are the contact points. And if you're dealing with static electricity, you're building up a charge large enough to jump from one surface to another. So that kind of arrangement right there would be absolutely perfect for that. and so that would operate on that kind of a charge building and discharge type of arrangement. And it's just let me tell you folks, it's just a short jump from this passive non-functioning machine to if you can make this machine spin, and if it turned, it would absolutely generate electricity, and you turn it into an alternating generator. So it's astonishing that if they designed this kind of a machine to do that back then, it's almost unthinkable that they weren't aware of alternating electrical circuits, because that's exactly what this is. If the two discs that are on the side of Lady Elche's head weren't stationary, if they were able to spin, I guarantee electrical continuity could have been obtained from it. And as you can see on this page, you see there's a good view of the three raised nodes that are right there. Each one has a rod that goes through it. Each one of those raised nodes is an insulator, or an isolator, whatever the case may be. And then the X-shaped metal plate next to it has a single rod that goes down into the machine. But at 2 points, it can make contact, and it just comes into close proximity with that metal plate. So it only stands to reason that if electricity was commutating through there, that it would jump from one to the other. So it would rely on the buildup of a sufficient charge for that leap to be made. And also on this page right here, I worked out the ancient materials that they could have used to make this machine work. Yeah, just simply using copper, gold, and silver, iron, silk, pearls, leather, ivory, wood, and just those few simple materials. Quartz. You gotta have quartz in there too. But just those simple hand materials would have made an astonishingly effective electrical circuit. And as you can see in this photo, or this drawing right here that I did a really good, I tried to do a fairly decent drawing of what the machine would look like. And you can see these little round pearls that are actually on the helmet itself. Those are static collectors. They were pearls that were wrapped in silk, and there's a silk liner that goes on the whole entire thing. It's a solid, continuous silk liner that has these pearls trapped in it. And they did something to convey the electrical current through the metal helmet that was probably bronze or copper or gold. The society that built this machine was astonishingly wealthy, so they would have certainly used orichalcum or gold or some fine top-notch metal in its construction, although it would have had common metal adornments added to it for the coloration, for the beauty of the color. Like they would incorporate copper and gold and bronze all together, so you get the contrast of colors. And this helmet in its original true form would have been so incredibly beautiful and so incredibly expensive that it would be comparable to buying a space shuttle in today's terms. And also I've identified the wavelengths that this machine would have had to have been able to tap into to convert brain waves to audible sound. And up to 30 hertz or less, for the gamma waves. And beta is 13 to 30 hertz. Alpha waves are 8 to 12 hertz. Theta waves are 4 to 8 hertz. Delta waves are less than 4 hertz. So this machine would have had to have been able to detect those electrical signature wavelengths, and then also convert those wavelengths to audible sound so that you could hear me thinking the words I'm thinking in my head, which is pretty astonishing to think about that a machine can do that. But honestly, folks, I have every reason to believe that that's what this machine did. And the carving of Lady Elche, there's hair clamps on either side, just inside of the disc, and what actually touches the side of her head under the helmet are these hair clips where her hair is actually run down through the center of them. There's a metal plate on the inside and one on the outside. Her hair is trapped in between them. So I'm willing to fathom that maybe the lady's hair was energized with static electricity, and that that would somehow improve the connection, or improve the conveyance of the brain waves to the machine in some way. So that's a mystery to be solved right there. And then as far as the windings go, I've drawn this diagram here to look back on the page we were just looking at. And look, if you see if the wiring was wrapped around the metal rods in this exact configuration, all the negative poles would connect together, and all the positive poles would connect together without crossing each other at any point. So that would make a complete electrical circuit. In modern terms, that's a continuative circuit. And it's the same sort of a circuitry that you would have inside of an alternating motor. A modern alternator motor. And so if this machine had all the elements that I'm talking about, if it had metal rods that were isolated away from each other, if it had magnetite magnets in it, if it had coil wrappings that connected the rods all together, then for all intents and purposes they had a machine. They at least had an electrical motor. And I seriously doubt that the purpose of this machine was to deliver electrical shocks. I think it was intended to convey electrical impulses and convert it into sound. And quite the opposite of that. With this being Atlantean technology, it's right in line with all the history that we've been taught. I mean, that makes the most logical and prudent sense. And it's such a good thing that we were able to find the Lady Elche buried in a farmer's field somewhere in Spain, so that I can lay my eyes on it and figure out a way to retro engineer a machine out of this. And also, if you'll notice, right in the very center, right in the very middle, on this photo of the statue itself, you can see the raised metal cups. I mean, they're just metal cups that look like they were press formed in a Ford's press, like we use today. That's what they look like. And that was, and that's a housing for an electrical armature of some sort. If it's not an armature, it'll be for a speaker apparatus. Something that would produce the sound that you hear. So I'm just trying to do my part to, solve some important mysteries of our ancient past, and this mystery is something that's extremely worthy of anyone's attention. I'm glad to have had an opportunity to work on this project while it's still relatively misunderstood, or at least nobody admittedly understands what it is. And so I'm glad to have had an opportunity to work on this during this early time after it's just been found. And I've drawn these excellent diagrams here, like this one here that shows the three raised nodes on top of a metal plate, and the metal rods are insulated away from the metal plate. And then down deeper in, you can see how the coil wrappings would form the coil portion of it. So this is an intriguing mystery, and done an extremely efficient job of trying to figure out how this machine could pick up electrical waves and transform it into sound. And if those the electrical waves are brain waves, and it only stands to reason that you could actually hear what someone's thinking. You hear the words that are inside their head, and that's really intriguing. So if you like this content and you'd like to see more, you can look up Eugene Runkus /patreon.com and see more of this kind of material over there. Thank you for watching this video. I'm your host, Eugene Runkus.